Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga fantasy/prediction show. We're back as a trio again. So myself, Mark, and Rune. So thank you very much for Rune for joining us once more. Obviously, we've got our predictions to Matchweek 11 to go through, plus, of course, our fantasy league predictions. Fantasy league hints and tips rather, which obviously me and Mark need very much so. We've kind of slightly amended or added in something slightly new for later on in the show with regards to fantasy football. So hopefully people appreciate what we've done in that, because I think a few people have been calling for that. So when we get onto that, we shall see. So let's crack on then. So we've got match week 11 coming up. We've got some good games thrown in the mix there. So we'll start off with Friday night football, which has Mainz hosting Borussia Mönchengladbach. So interesting one for me is I think that Gladbach have been, flattered to deceive in certain points, but at the moment it looks like they're kind of getting back on a bit of form and a bit of a roll. So I'm going to back them for what would be a very impressive 2-1 away win. So Mark, over to you.
Yeah, I think for me, I just really love the way Mainz are playing at the minute. You know, Johnny Burkhardt is just amazing, isn't he? I mean, it looks like he's got the Germany call up as well under his belt. Obviously, Omnis Siwo as well. He's kind of not really got the credit he deserves, but he's been brilliant as well of late. And I'm going to back Mainz in this one. I think they look a better side to me than Gladbach. I think, again, I wasn't overly impressed with Gladbach against Bochum. You know, they managed to get a 2-1 win, but it wasn't vintage Gladbach, I didn't think, really. But I've actually gone for 2-1 Mainz in this one.
Good stuff. Right, we've got two opposite results so far. So, Rune, what do you reckon to this one?
I've actually gone for a 1-1 draw. But yeah, I was going to say that this one is a pretty tough one to predict because I think Gladbach are the better side player for player, but Mainz are a really tough side to play against, really playing as a team. And I think Gladbach's main problem this season has been winning the matches that they are expected to win, while they always do well against the big teams. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a draw here.
Very good. So moving on to Saturday's games, we've got quite a lot of the so-called big teams playing. So first and foremost, we've got Bayern Munich. So they're hosting the unbeaten SC Freiburg. So will they remain unbeaten after this game? Who knows? But I think, unfortunately, they'll succumb to the current champions. I think they'll go down, but I think they'll score a couple of goals and really trouble the champions. But I think it'll be 3-2 to Bayern. So, Mark, what do you reckon to this one? Are Freiburg going to lose that unbeaten record?
Yeah, I think the problem that Freiburg face here is that I think because obviously of their form and the way they've been going under Streich, I think Bayern are going to take them seriously, and I think that's a negative thing for Freiburg. You know, I think Bayern, the games they tend to lose are the games when Bayern almost think they can't lose, if you know what I mean. They are the kind of games that they tend to lose more than any. I think they're going to take Freiburg really seriously here, you know, because obviously the form they've been on has just been brilliant, you know. But obviously, player for player, I mean, you still go Bayern pretty much every position, let's be honest. So ultimately, they are the better side on paper. And I've only gone for 2-1 because I just think Freiburg will still manage to make it difficult, but I still think Bayern will get the 2-1 win there.
Yeah, very good. And Rune, do you think the champions will be victorious?
Yeah, I do. I've gone for a 3-1 win for Bayern. I agree with what you guys said. Bayern will probably win this game, especially with the way they've been playing recently. They've scored 10 goals in the last 2 games, which is pretty amazing, but they've also conceded 4. So Freiburg will definitely or probably get to score as well and be creating some chances too. I think with Bayern playing at home, they're simply too good at the moment.
Yeah, very good. On to the next game. A resurgent Wolfsburg host apparently free scoring Augsburg, certainly against my boys anyway. It promises to be obviously a tricky game for both, but obviously the way the form book is going and with that kind of momentum, I'm going to back the home team to edge it. So I've gone for a 2-1 home win for Wolfsburg to keep it perfect record for the new man in charge. Mark, do you think the momentum will continue with Wolfsburg?
Yeah, it seems as though Kohlfeldt is the new Jurgen Klopp. After all, who would have thought it? Do you know what I mean? Like, he's revitalized the club from what we can see so far. Brilliant performance last week against Leverkusen when they won comfortably, really. Then obviously a first Champions League win in a number of years midweek against Salzburg. So yeah, I mean, it's so far so good for the former Werder Bremen boss. You know, obviously quite a bit of a surprise appointment. I don't know what you think, Rune. Obviously, me and Rory mentioned it, but he was somewhat of a surprise appointment for me after what I consider to be a pretty much a failed stint at Werder. But yeah, 2 wins out of 2. But I think it's too good to be true, really, so far for Kohlfeldt. I've actually gone for a 1-1 draw here. I just think Augsburg will just it's a game that might not suit Wolfsburg, this one, because I think Augsburg will kind of sit in there and they'll be happy to take a point. And I think they might just nick a 1-1 draw.
Okay, yeah. Rune, what do you think then?
I'm backing Wolfsburg to win this game. I've gone for a 2-0 win. I think they will win pretty comfortably with the way they've played recently and the confidence that we see from them at the moment. I think they'll be able to build on their quite impressive wins recently. And at the same time, Augsburg are not very good away from home. They've lost 9 of their last 11 away games in the league away from home. So, yeah, I think the home side will win here.
Yeah, tricky work for them. Next up, we've got 2 teams that are not in form, so to speak. We've got VfB Stuttgart hosting Arminia Bielefeld. Yeah, tricky ones to call again because I think both teams are scrapping for their lives a little bit. You know, Stuttgart are being dragged into the conversation with regards to relegation. So I think Bielefeld wouldn't be upset with a point away from home, and with that in mind, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Mark?
Yeah, I think this is a hard one to predict because it's 2 sides who are just not enjoying the best of seasons, let's be honest. You know, I mean, both had very poor results last week in games that they might have targeted as possible wins. They seem to be going backwards more than anything, both sides, you know, and it's very worrying for the 2. Obviously, the 2 sides who did so well to stay up last year as newly promoted teams as well, you know. Yeah. I mean, Bielefeld did get a win at Stuttgart last year when they were kind of fighting towards the end of the season. So, you know, they'll be kind of buoyed by that. But I agree with Rory. I think a 1-1 draw here. I think it's just it's a game that probably neither side can afford to lose, really, this one.
Yeah. Rune, do you think it will be a draw, or are you going to go one way or the other?
I've actually backed Stuttgart to win this, to take a narrow 2-1 win. But yeah, I totally agree with you guys. It's really hard to predict this game, and it is like a true relegation 6-pointer. So yeah, neither of the teams can really afford to lose this game. But I think maybe playing at home and with the quality Stuttgart have, and actually they look pretty good until Chris Führig got injured and they started conceding against Augsburg. They started off really well, I think, and if they get off to a similar start in this game and they're playing at home, then I think they'll pull the longest straw here.
Let's hope so. From my point of view. Next up, another team obviously very much in the conversation with regards to relegation is Bochum, and they are hosting Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim, of course, have had a couple of very good Friday night wins at home. Obviously, last weekend against Hertha being the latest one. Away from home, obviously maybe they're slightly harder to predict, and Bochum certainly won't roll over. But I'm gonna probably, against my better judgment, back Hoffenheim to back up and continue their kind of good little roll and win 2-1 away at Bochum. So, Mark, do you agree, or do you think the newly promoted side may grab a point?
Yeah, I've actually gone for the newly promoted side to get the win here, simply because Hoffenheim won their last game, basically. Yeah, I mean, we know that Hoffenheim, like, there's just no consistency whatsoever with them, is there? I mean, they won very, very comfortably against Hertha Berlin, obviously ending Hertha's good run. But, I mean, they just can't back up performances, can they? You And I mean, specifically away from home this season, apart from the win against Augsburg on the opening day, they've not been that great in recent games, and they were well beaten by Bayern and Stuttgart in the last 2 away games. I think this is a game that, Bochum, I mean, they're putting good, consistent performances together, only narrowly beaten at Gladbach before 2 consecutive wins before that. I actually think they can nick a 2-1 win here. This is a kind of game that can push them a little bit of distance away from the bottom 3.
And finally, Rune. Yeah, I think this will be a 1-1 draw, but yeah, I agree with Mark. Hoffenheim are favorites here on paper, but yeah, they've been quite inconsistent this season, and I think this could be tougher for them than what the bookies are expecting. Bochum have shown that it can be quite difficult to open up their defense, and I think they'll be happy to sit back and attack on the counter. So yeah, this will probably be a draw, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, on Saturday night football, and what looks to be the stellar game of the weekend, although, if you look at the table, it's Bayern Freiburg. It's RB Leipzig hosting Borussia Dortmund, yeah. And interesting game because obviously Dortmund coming off a disappointing outing against Ajax, and Leipzig, I thought, played really well against PSG. And no, you can not always just go off the most recent game and look at it as an overall picture. But I think me and Mark were saying that if they can sort out their defence, they'll be a really solid outfit. So, interesting one. And with that in mind, and without Haaland, I'm going to say 2-1 to Leipzig. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, this was one of the hardest games to predict for me this weekend. Yeah, because I think obviously Dortmund were well beaten again last night by Ajax, really, and then I know they got that unfortunate red card for Hummels, but I don't know. They're a weird side this year, Dortmund, for me. I don't think they're playing that well, really, but they're getting wins in the Bundesliga, And I thought against Cologne last week, they probably just about deserved to win the game, but it wasn't a 2-0 for me, really. Probably a 2-1 or even a 2-all, really, overall. I think a couple of decisions went against Cologne in that one, really. But yeah, I actually think they will win this game, though. I just think Leipzig have bigger problems than Dortmund at the minute, because I think Dortmund are managing to find wins without Haaland, but I think Leipzig, I don't know, they just can't get really going under Jesse Marsch, can they, for me? And I'm not sure whether Jesse Marsch is really going to end up being a long-term appointment there, really, at Leipzig. I've just got a feeling that, it's not going to work out. So I'm going for a 2-1 win for Dortmund.
Okie doke, right. 2 results, one way and the other. So to you, Rune, for the casting vote.
I've backed Leipzig to win this 3-2. I think they can take more confidence from that performance in midweek now that they ended up getting a draw against PSG. And I agree with you, Rory. They played really well, Leipzig. They were probably the better side for large periods of that game. Even against the top side like PSG. And I think Leipzig were very unlucky not to win against Frankfurt last week. Obviously, they have to take advantage of their chances, and if they had, then they would have won that game pretty comfortably. But yeah, it's always difficult to beat Dortmund. They're also getting the results mainly in the Bundesliga that they need, despite not playing that well. And I think both sides are really leaky in defense, so I'm expecting a lot of goals. But I'm actually backing Leipzig to come out on top this game.
Very good. Right, let's move on to Sunday. So 3 games, back to the 3 games on Sunday. So we've got the first game of the day, Hertha hosting by Leverkusen. Leverkusen obviously very much in not quite free fall, but their form has pretty much disappeared since that Bayern game. And Hertha, again, much the same as Hoffenheim, I'd say, quite hard to predict what they're going to do. Generally speaking, they beat the teams that they should beat. So with this one in mind, and especially at home where they don't seem to get their best results, I'm going to say a narrow 2-1 win to Leverkusen. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, again, this is another hard one to predict, actually. Yeah, I think obviously Hertha are on the better form overall, but I thought they were pretty much well beaten, really, at Hoffenheim last week in a game that perhaps they might have felt they could have got something out of. I think Leverkusen, this is a game that could kind of suit them, I think. Obviously very, very poor last week against Wolfsburg. But I think away from home, they often look better, actually, Leverkusen. I tend to find that the better performances come away because they break so well on the counter, don't they? Like those lightning fast breaks. Yeah. I've actually gone for a 3-1 win to Leverkusen. They've got to win eventually. It's now like 6 games in all competitions without a win. So, yeah, they've got to win eventually, and I think it will be on Saturday. On Sunday.
Sunday, yeah. Yeah, Rune, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I've backed Leverkusen to win this 2-1. I know they're in a bit of a slump and not doing well, but I'm just not very convinced with this Hertha side. And as you said, Mark, they were beaten quite comfortably by Hoffenheim last week. And I think, this would be a good opportunity for Leverkusen to get back on track with Moussa Diaby coming back. Then I think they could hurt that Hertha defense.
Very good. So second game Sunday, we've got FC Cologne, and they are hosting Union Berlin. So 2 teams that are playing pretty good football, to be fair, this season. Union are continuing to impress from last season and going better and better. And obviously, Cologne are a different proposition under the new head coach of Baumgart. Very tough one to call this. And I'm gonna give it to the home side and say with their home support behind them, and the encouraging way that they've been playing so far this season. Obviously, maybe take out the 2-0 loss to Dortmund. Not even that they played that badly. So 2-1 away win, but always hard to write off Union. So Mark, what do you reckon?
Yeah, for me, I just think Union, they play better as a team for me than Cologne overall. I think Cologne, they've definitely improved overall from last season, but I still think that the performances have dropped off a little bit since the last international break, really, since Shaqiri got injured. I think they're a little bit more leaky for me than what they were early on when they only lost 1 out of the first 7 games. Obviously they've gone on to take only 1 point from the last 9 available. I think for me, Union, they just, every player in that team knows what they're doing. And I think even away from home, they pick up a lot of wins. I think they beat Mainz, so the only side that went away to win at Mainz. This is kind of a similar kind of level game to that. And I think obviously they do play Feyenoord later tonight, which is going to be a hard game, and I would imagine they'll go strong in that because they pretty much need to win if they want to progress to the next phase of the Conference League. Yeah. But I just think they've been doing so well with the rotation this season. I think they'll get a 2-1 win in this one. 2-1 to Union for me.
Okie doke. Rune, what do you reckon to this one?
I think this will be a 2-2 draw. I think it will be a very tight affair, and it's 2 very entertaining teams coming up against each other. A close game with goals on both ends that will end up as a draw.
Very good. And very quickly, the last game sees Fürth hosting Frankfurt. At the moment, you can argue that Frankfurt are themselves, of course they are. They're in a relegation battle, let's face it. They'll target this one, regardless of the fact that they're not playing great football this season. I can see them getting a win and not conceding. So I'm saying 2-0 to the away side. Mark?
Yeah, this is, again, it's a tough one because, normally you'd say Frankfurt should win again. Man for man, they're probably better all over the pitch, the away side. But they were well beaten away at Bochum in the last away game, weren't they? They were just, they barely even got a foothold in that game, really, away at Bochum. And I guess Fürth will be looking at that and thinking, it is one of few winnable games, really, let's be honest, for Fürth. But I just can't understand why Frankfurt are struggling so much, because if you look at their Europa League form, they won again tonight away in Olympiacos, which is a really, really good win, they're on 10 points from 4 games, and I think they're pretty much qualified with 2 games to spare at that level. But in the league, they just can't get it going, can they? So, this is a game that will probably worry them a little bit because they won't want to be the first side to lose to this Fürth outfit. Do you know what I mean? And they will probably think, if we don't shape ourselves, we could lose this. But I still think that Frankfurt will finally come good in the league and win 3-1 here. Yeah,
finally, Rune, over to you.
Yeah, I've gone for a 2-1 win for Frankfurt here. After their really poor start to the season, Fürth have become a side that every other team expect to beat, and the fact that they've been hit by a number of COVID cases hasn't exactly helped their situation. So Frankfurt have to win this game, and I think they will.
Grand, good stuff. So let's move on in a moment, obviously, to the fantasy football stuff. I think by the looks of it, all those predictions we've got, I've certainly got a lot more safer and kind of back the favourites because last week was an unmitigated disaster for me. So at the moment, I think the scores on the doors, well, certainly me and Mark is, there we are, 5-5. So yeah, very close. So who's going to pull away? We'll have to see. So that's good to see. Right, let's move on to our fantasy football section then, and let's have a look at what's going on in terms of how we three are doing in terms of the table and the standings. And as you'll see below, things are getting rosier and rosier for Rune. So he's now joint first in the Over the Bar and Bully News League. And unfortunately, me and Mark are somewhat free-falling, like a lot of teams form in the Bundesliga. Mark has now hit the terrible twos and is now in 202nd. I'm in not a much better 182nd. So there you go. We're obviously not listening hard enough. So must try harder this weekend. And just to clarify, obviously that Rune is top of the Bundesliga fantasy league. Of course, he is joint top and level with the Dublin Dortmunder, one of our now hopefully regular viewers who's been joining us for the last few shows, doing really well. I think he commented on last week's show saying that he's been enjoying it and wanting to improve on last season. So hopefully you're watching this evening, and well done for still being top. You're doing yourself very much proud and much better than me and Mark. So hopefully your form can continue. Right then, straight over to fantasy football focus. So Rune, obviously we'll kind of go through a little bit of, who kind of is best to avoid and what teams are going to be kind of the best teams to pick for this weekend. And then we'll go into our new section to finish off. So Rune, if you want to kind of just run through the teams to avoid and of course the teams to maybe look at this weekend.
Yeah, with the teams to look out for, I'd say Wolfsburg are a team that I'm really targeting with the form they've had recently, and they have a pretty attractive matchup against Augsburg at home, and some quite interesting assets from a fantasy perspective. So they're really top of my list this week. And then of course Frankfurt, I know they haven't been doing that well, but now that they're playing against Fürth, then they automatically become interesting from a fantasy perspective. And I also think there are some players to consider from Frankfurt. And then, as every week, I'm going to mention Gladbach because again they have some pretty attractive players. They have a lot of different players to choose between, so you can pick differentials if you're not planning to pick the most obvious picks. And at the same time, they're playing on Friday evening, which is a quite big advantage because you'll be able to star all your Gladbach players and pretty much like change them all on Saturday if they don't perform as you want them to. So that's a big advantage. Also, the fact that there are no other teams playing at the same time. With regard to teams to avoid or get rid of this week, then Freiburg are probably the only team that I would really, really avoid, apart from the obvious ones. Maybe if I own Christian Günther, I would probably consider keeping him because he seems pretty fixture-proof. But with regard to Grifo or Yewon Young, then I would probably sell them because they have Bayern this week, and then we have the international break with unlimited transfers. So it doesn't really make sense to keep them if you can switch them out for Wolfsburg or Frankfurt players because they have a much more favorable matchup.
Good stuff. So obviously, talking of the international window, so obviously, unfortunately, it's upon us again after this match week. And then looking forward, Rune, just slightly after that, are there many more unlimited kind of transfer windows? Obviously, I'm not sure how many more international breaks we have, to be honest, this season. Do we have any more in December, or is it now that are we now going again until the winter break?
I think we're going without any further unlimited transfer periods until the winter break. But I'm actually not really sure. But I don't think there are more international breaks this year. Is that?
I don't think there are.
No, not that I know of. No.
Yeah, I don't think there ever have been in December, have there? So right. So obviously we're going to be going straight through into that. We'll talk more about that when we come to it. We'll probably do another live fantasy draft as well to kind of refresh. Hopefully, me and Mark's luck when it comes to obviously fantasy football. So without massively kind of giving away what we've done this week, Rune, do you want to just go through a couple of maybe differentials or kind of wildcard picks before we go into our new section, and then you can run us through your new section for this week?
Yeah, I can do that. Sure. Then I'm going to keep the best options until the last section.
Until last, yes, best till last. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. But yeah, with regard to differential picks, I think Paulo Otavio from Wolfsburg is a quite interesting pick this week. He was a really popular player last season, mainly due to his ability to win duels. He picked up a lot of points from winning duels actually, and with Kofeld taking over, it seems like he's come back into the side and looks pretty nailed on to start at the left wing back position. And currently, he's owned by 0% of managers, so I think he has a lot of potential. He's actually quite expensive, priced at 10.2 million. So in that sense, he's not like a really cheap pick, but at least he has a lot of potential, I think, if you're looking for players that not too many other people own. I also think Yannick Gerhardt is a quite interesting pick from Wolfsburg because, like Otavio, he's also played under Kofeld here at the beginning, and actually in a quite advanced role. He's a pretty flexible player, but he's been playing on the wing, and I know many people are targeting Maximilian Arnold this week if they're going for a Wolfsburg player in midfield, and he's a really good pick as well, but he's almost twice as expensive, and again, he's probably going to be more popular. So if you're looking for a player that only a few others might pick, then I think Gerhardt has a lot of potential. Also owned by 0%, like Otavio.
Yeah, definitely a few Wolfsburg players I think I'll be shifting in because there's always that lift, isn't there? Seemingly when the new head coach comes in, and obviously Kofeld is, he'll give players presumably a fresh start. Obviously, if players were potentially on the bench under Van Bommel and such. So yeah, absolutely, I think that's a good shout.
With regard to just another pick, then I think Rafael Borré from Frankfurt could be a cheeky differential. I know he's not been like really scoring a lot of goals, and things haven't really clicked for him yet. But I saw he set up a goal tonight, and as far as I know, he's on penalties as well, and he's coming up against quite a few. So with a price tag of 7.8 million, then he might be worth a punt this week.
Okie doke, good stuff. Well, without further ado, we'll drop the new section for this show. So we've now got Bully News' top 5 fantasy picks. So obviously, a lot of people have been commenting on this show in particular and asking for kind of a visual way of seeing, hints and tips basically that Rune has been picking out. So we've listened and we've reacted. So we've now got a top 5 picks. So we shall get it going at the bottom there, so everyone can see it. So Rune, do you want to just talk us through your 5 for this week and why those 5, or if there's one in particular that's your the best one to put in? If you've only got 3 transfers, haven't you? I guess so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, starting off with Nico Gieselman, I think a lot of people sold him last week actually because he was coming up against Bayern, and they were probably made to regret that decision because he scored and actually picked up 9 points despite the fact that they lost 5-2. So that says something about the way you can still pick up points even if you are playing as a defender for a team that concedes 5 goals, then you can still do quite well actually. Yeah. And Gieselman did, and it maybe shows that he can perform against any team. He has scored a lot of goals this season, and he's also cheap. He costs 4.5 million. So at the moment, I think he's very hard to overlook, also because he's kind of an enabler that frees up funds for other more expensive assets. So yeah, that's my first pick this week. The second pick is Rami Bensebaini. I think he has done really well since coming back from an injury, and probably better than most people expected. Gladbach coach Adi Hütter even said he was like really surprised with the way he's come back and like just performed after such a long injury spell. So he's in great form, and he has a standalone fixture on Friday evening, as we talked about. And it looks like he will start on the left back position. Last week, I was a little bit concerned that he might start up in central defense, but Hertha reverted to a four-man backline with Benzabaini playing down the left last week, and I think he will hold on to that. And he's the preferred penalty taker for Gladbach, and picked up 10 points last week. So I think he's a really good option as well. And then moving on to his teammate Jonas Hofmann, I think with the way he's played in recent week, with the form he's shown, he's very hard to look past as well. Also because he has the standalone fixture, and he scored I think 62 points in his last 5 games. So that's like just over 12 points on average per game his last 5 games. And still he's owned by just 7% of fantasy Bundesliga managers, which I think is quite low considering how well he's been doing for practically all this season. So kind of a must-have option, I'd say, Jonas Hofmann at the moment. And my next pick is Filip Kostic, and he didn't travel to Athens for tonight's Europa League game. He picked up a knock in training, so you have to like keep up to date and see what's being said at the pre-match press conference. But if he plays, which I think he will, then he's almost a must-have player this week as well. He's picked up 91 points this season in total, despite playing for, let's face it, an out-of-form Frankfurt side. So we could see last week how well you can do against Fürth with Grifo, who I didn't pick myself. I went for Young, but Grifo did really well, picked up over 20 points against Fürth just from that game. So Kostic has the potential to do the same, I'd say.
Yeah, especially in such a big game for sure.
My last pick is Lukas Nemetcha from Wolfsburg. Scored 3 goals in the last 4 games in all competitions, and now has a really promising fixture against Augsburg coming up. He picked up 16 points against Leverkusen last week, so I think he's a quite attractive player, especially for the price. Costs 8.7 million and is owned by 1%. Obviously, you could go for about Weghorst instead if you have a little more to spend, but actually, I think that Nemetcha, with the form he has shown recently, he might be the better option. Even if you have the funds to pick Weghorst, then I would probably go for Nemetcha anyway. So,
do you think Nemetcha will start with Weghorst, Rune, when they're both fit and firing as a front two, or do you think they can't fit them both in?
I'm pretty sure he will. Yeah, they both started, as far as I'm concerned, in midweek in Champions League, and the Nemetcha played as on the wing, but was still very involved. And Kofeld, I think Kofeld said that he could imagine starting them both up front together. So in any case, Nemetcha is very involved going forward, even when he's playing on the wing.
Great goal midweek as well. Great strike.
Very.
Good stuff. Well, that brings a close to the fantasy football section and the first ever Bully News top 5 fantasy picks. So you heard it there, you've seen it, the 5 players that you need to pick this week if you can fit them into your team and if you can afford them. So I think that's about it for this week. So many thanks to Rune, as per usual, for some great differentials and some great hints and tips for this weekend. And of course, thank you, Mark, and everyone else for watching this evening. Let's hope that myself and Mark can kind of pick up a bit more form and start to push ourselves back up that fantasy league table. So it's probably about time to hand it back over to you, Mark, and close up the show.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to stick all of Rune's tips in there this week after my nightmare again. Every week it seems as though I plummet down that table. I don't even know how it's happening, But yeah, this time, every single one of Rune's tips going in there. Well, at least 3 of them anyway, that's for sure, yeah. Yeah, good. Okay, so remember, if you want to check out our Twitter feed, @OverTheBarFB or @OverTheBarExtra. Remember also our kind of centerpiece, OTBfootball.net. Remember also at this point to check out Bully News as well, which is Rune's site. Yeah, we are also in partnership with Bully News. Obviously, we get Rune on every Thursday. So, check that out as well. One of the biggest English-speaking sites for Bundesliga news, and also one of the biggest fantasy football Bundesliga sites as well. So if you want to read any more of the information, you can also find articles on there about that as well. And obviously, to help us out as well, remember to check out, to put the like, comment, and subscribe to us. Yeah, we're seeing like a slow increase in subscribers. We've had really, really good interaction the last week as well. So yeah, it'd be great if that could continue this week. But yeah, other than that, that's the end of this episode. And yeah, we will see you guys again on Monday for the next review show. So yeah,
Cheers, all.
Yeah, guys.